Welcome to the Virtual Ball Boys podcast. My name is Chris, and I am joined once again by my good friend, Matt.
When I was in 5th grade, I was obsessed with the television show on Cartoon Network titled Ben 10, where a 10-year-old boy turns into aliens through the use of his watch. And one day, Ben 10 had a promotional thing to do on the Cartoon Network website, where you could vote for your favorite alien in a bracket style, and then they would go up against each other, and then the number one alien would move on to the next round. And when it got to the very end, my favorite alien, Accelerate, was in the end, the blue one that goes really fast. And I voted for him 10 times before I went to school that day, and he ended up winning. And I felt really guilty because I thought that my 10 votes, were more than I should have voted for, and the reason he won was because I did those 10 extra votes when I probably should have only done one.
Why do you feel guilty? You got your
I
win.
don't know. I was 10. I couldn't control my emotions.
Yeah, you put in the work. You know, you were given this opportunity to put your boy with the crown, and you took every opportunity, and you earned that victory. You know what? Yeah. I bet if we go back and we look at those voting totals, it won by 8 votes.
Won by 8 votes. It was because of me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you did not put in those extra votes, he probably would
I did also vote for the second placer 3 times, though, not really understanding how, voting worked.
Okay, sure. Equal, but so that's, at the end of the day, it's just it's like a participation situation,
right,
where everyone who's participated deserves some sort of honor, and I agree with that sentiment. Anyways.
I was a weird kid.
Can I just say, though, you mentioned Cartoon Network website, and man, those were the fucking days where I could go on and play the Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends game.
Baby, Big Fat Awesome House Party, you bet.
Yes, and then the Total Drama Island, and well, actually, I think for me it might have been more Total Drama Action. With going in and
you didn't even fucking watch that show.
I did in the beginning. In the beginning, I watched a couple episodes, but I have zero memory of it. Like I have rewatched so much Total Drama Island that I have forgotten any other Total Drama that I've consumed.
Can I also say, like slightly related and not at all related to football?
Sure.
I saw a post the other day that Adobe Flash Player, not existing anymore, is one of the reasons why the internet sucks now.
Okay, yeah.
Because there are no websites dedicated for kids anymore. So they're all on TikTok and Instagram. Because that's just the only... And YouTube, because that's the only places that exist. So that's the only places they can be. Where if there was a fucking CartoonNetwork.com and they could play fucking... I don't know what cartoons exist now. The Loud House Flash game. Maybe they wouldn't be acting like 15 when they're 9, you know?
I mean, to be fair, earlier our friend Ace was telling me about Yummer, which is their account photo, and Yummer comes from a SpongeBob Flash game, and I went and checked. That Flash game still works on Nickelodeon's website.
Interesting.
So I don't know if they use Flash or something else, but Nickelodeon, maybe we just need to traffic all the kids to that website,
maybe,
and have them play on that website instead of going on TikTok and learning about, I don't know, Tide Pods or whatever.
Tide Pods. That was 5 years ago, Chris. Tide Pods was 5 years ago. Do you feel old now?
I feel old every single time I make any sort of reference, because I feel like I am just stuck making older references because I don't pay attention to anything else in life anymore.
That's fair. Did you also know, and this is on the topic of cable TV dying.
Sure.
There's the Nickelodeon show Danger Force has Among Us in every single episode title.
Oh no!
Just to try to get either kids changing the channel for some reason to see Among Us, or for the short off chance that they would Google Among Us and then another word and then it happened to be the episode title.
I mean, maybe they're geniuses. I don't know. Maybe
They're desperate fuckers, is what they are.
maybe they're that is wild. I don't. I I get that Among Us is maybe still popular in some capacity, but I don't know. Maybe we also could just let a trend die. I'm sorry.
Maybe we can let
this.
things end, and we don't need to revive everything. And we should let artists make new shows.
Phineas and Ferb,
and
baby.
And we should not cancel every single adult animated cartoon that isn't Family Guy, Simpsons, and Rick and Morty. Maybe we should let artists make art. Maybe.
But Matt, Velma.
Renew Inside Job.
Well, it's been a rough go of it in entertainment. I mean, even like today with the games industry is falling the fuck apart today. Microsoft is falling apart. They're laying off everyone. There's a lot of web gaming websites. GameSpot just laid off a bunch of people, and Giant Bomb, who I follow a lot, laid off a bunch of people. So it's a mess. The world's a mess, but we're here to deliver any sort of entertainment that we can do, because it's rough out there, boys.
Yep.
The fellow virtual ball boys, and if you're wondering, hey Chris, I don't identify as a boy, it's okay. For in this instance, you're our audience. You can also be a virtual ball boy with us. It's fine.
Ball boy is
totally
a title.
It's just a title. Yeah, that doesn't need to be gendered necessarily.
Yeah. We just both happen to be boys.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
But as an audience,
do we need a name
today.
For our audience?
I don't
a gender neutral name, because we can be boys.
I have to. I feel like
unless we just call them balls.
What's up, balls?
What's up, balls?
Welcome to Virtual Balls. I don't know. Like I
good balls.
I feel like we could good night or good balls. We need to look up the ball boy profession and look up vocabulary associated with ball boys, who do quite a service for the sport of football.
Ball boys and ball girls, also known as ball kids.
Ball kids. What's up, you ball kids?
Yeah. Ball boy is also the name of a Scottish indie group.
Okay. Interesting. Good to know. Shout out to the ball boys. All right. Let's talk football. This is not really a loaded episode. Like, compared to last week where we had everything to do, we really have nothing to do today. So, but we have stuff to talk about. Given we got wild card weekend that just happened. We have some coaching news ish. It's not really that hot. Going not a lot of news popping off on that front as of yet. And of course, we will be picking the divisional round games. But let's start with the wild card round recap. Now, obviously things function a little bit differently for us in terms of how we do our format in the playoffs. Instead of picking our usual game of the week, blah of the week, all that stuff, we just go through the games. Because there's not a lot of them. We just go through and give our reactions to what we watched. Matt, did you have the pleasure of watching all of the football games this week?
I was able to watch or at least keep up with all of the football games. Yes, cool. And I gotta say, Chris, this was one of the best. Last year was great. This was also a fantastic wild card weekend.
Oh yeah. I don't think. Yeah.
Even the losers had a lot to say about them. Like you have the Seahawks, you have the Dolphins, you have the Ravens. No one expected them to win, and yet they played really close. Seahawks faltered the second half, but they were leading at halftime. They were on top of it, right? Ravens had a great defense. Dolphins managed to get 31 points. The Chargers, despite blowing the lead, really showed that they had a good offense and really just fell apart through a couple things. Even the Vikings were a couple plays from maybe getting down to a touchdown to tie, and the Buccaneers also participated.
they participated at the end of the day, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think the divisional round last year is still I think one of my favorite weekends of football ever. Mm-hmm. I think it just I think the only sour thing was just like, oh man, I really wanted the Bills to move on in that weekend, but
Yep.
but that was like just from start to finish was just was a beautiful display of the sport, and I think this weekend definitely comes close to that. I think maybe is like hunkered down a little bit by the games that weren't one score games when it was all said and done. Let's start with one of those games, as you were mentioning earlier, Matt. The Seahawks at 49ers. Yeah, this was a game that Brock Purdy came out a little shaky in this game. And ultimately, even though the 49ers did score a lot early, it was the Seahawks who kind of roared back and ended up leading at halftime. And it did feel like, okay, maybe this is going to be a closer game throughout. And then the Seahawks scored 6 points in the second half, and the 49ers absolutely dominated them the rest of the way. And it was not very close when it was all said and done. But nonetheless, the Seahawks did at least keep our interest through halftime, Matt.
Yeah, and like for the Seahawks team who everybody expected, like, oh, they may be the number 1 overall pick.
Oh yeah.
Again, even just making the playoffs is fantastic for them. So good on you, Seahawks.
Yeah, it was such a surprise. I think out of everyone in this playoff field, like we'll get to another team in a second. But the Seahawks were definitely like among like the more like, whoa, like who would have ever expected them, considering everything that was transpiring prior to the season of like, man, this team just does seem like it's in like a rebuild mode. They're starting Geno Smith, who's been a backup for years now. Like, this is probably not going to be that good of a team. The fact that he played as well as he did, I think, is a huge victory for the Seahawks, and something that, like, man, he could now serve as a starter for them for a couple years now, like before they even need to worry about drafting a quarterback. But even if they did want to say, like, let's say, like, all right, we had this year of Geno, maybe we move on from him. They also have a high draft pick thanks to the Denver Broncos falling apart.
Yep.
So it's kind of a perfect scenario for the Seahawks. Like they're in a very good spot despite losing that game against the 49ers. So yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of teams who are in great spots because they made trades, and then the team that they traded with fucking sucked.
Right.
Lions and Eagles as well.
Right, exactly. Like, who did the Eagles trade with? I'm forgetting.
They had a trade with the Saints.
Oh,
I forget who the player was, but they had a trade with the Saints.
Was that C.J. Gardner? That was not Gardner Johnson, right?
No, because like the Saints got the player.
Oh, that's true. The Saints would have gotten the player.
Yeah.
Oh man, maybe that could have been like maybe it was like a first round swap, like last year. Maybe something like that happened. We'd have to look into it, but yeah. So that was the first game. Really, not a whole lot to say about that one. I do have a lot to say though about the Chargers at Jaguars, which was the Saturday primetime game. Matt brought it up here. Chargers went on a really nice run where it was 27-0, and Trevor Lawrence, even though I would argue that the interceptions at moments were not really his fault, still threw 4 interceptions, and there is also a muffed punt situation. I think I want to say what was the other turnaround. So they had a -5 turnover differential. The Jaguars did in the first half. Near the end of the first half, though, the Jaguars did score a touchdown, so they were 20. It was 27-7, and then it just started to pour it on the Chargers, and they started just scoring over and over again. The Chargers' offense completely stalled. There was one moment that was. Justin Herbert was gonna, like, they were running they usually run something like with like a wide receiver. Throughout this year, it was Mike Williams that did it, where they, like, the wide receiver would run behind the quarterback and Herbert would, like, hand it off quickly to them. That was like a fumble. The Chargers did recover that fumble, but that was just kind of a sign of things to come for them, where nothing was working, and then the Jaguars offense started to get really creative, and Doug Peterson deserves a lot of credit for being on it with like there was a really solid like fourth down call where I don't think they didn't sneak it in. They handed it to, I think, ETN, and ETN did like a roundabout and got the first down to get into field goal range.
Insane final play there.
Yeah, that was a wild moment. Another wild moment was when they're at the goal line and
Trevor reached over with the ball.
Well, that was the 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
What happened was they got the touchdown, and then I think they were thinking about kicking the extra point, but then Joey Bosa, who is infuriated by the officials and very much expressed it after the fact as well. By the way, officiating very much a storyline out of this weekend.
Yes,
we'll get to that. But they decided, you know what? He got the penalty. We got closer to the line. Let's go for 2, and they got it. And the game ended on a field goal that put the Jaguars in front, and they got the victory in something that I was just like, I could not. I was gobsmacked by the whole thing because I was watching and I just could not believe what I just watched. Like I don't, for some reason this was more shocking to me than the Vikings coming back on the Colts, even though like that probably was obvious that was going to happen. Well, I guess that's the thing. Like the Colts like thing was like not super surprising, mainly because like that they were the Colts. They were a bad team. And so the Vikings coming back on that and having the best comeback of all time, like you could kind of felt that was going to end up coming. Where this one, it kind of didn't feel like that. It felt like the Jaguars just ran into some really bad luck, and that this was a team that was just in the playoffs for the first time with Trevor Lawrence, and that he was having a bad night, and that it was not going to go their way. And the fact that they somehow still turned it around, and the Chargers completely floundered their opportunity to get to the next round and play the Chiefs in a game that probably would have been even stronger than maybe that what's we're actually going to get, which I don't doubt the Jaguars' ability to beat the Chiefs. It's just that I think everyone loves seeing Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes go up against each other. So to squander that opportunity, Matt, is just wild to me. I could not believe what I watched.
It's fantastic, and I'm all here for it. Let's go, Jaguars. Team chaos all the way, obviously, and the fact that we got this comeback, like I was giddy the entire fucking like second half, because like there's a point with some comebacks where you're like, oh, it's gonna happen. Yeah, like, you know, like even with that Vikings game, I was like, there was a point where it was like, the Vikings are going to come back and win this game, even when they were still down a couple of scores. It was like the dominoes were in motion. Last year, week 18 with the Chargers, it was like, this game is going to go to overtime. Like you knew it in your soul at a certain point that something was going to happen. Yeah, and that got to a point with the Jaguars here.
Yeah, I guess for me it was just like I just didn't see. I felt like the Chargers had, and obviously like the Mike Williams injury, I think proved to be big, especially considering the play I just mentioned where he usually runs the jet sweep. That's the name of that play. And he was not there to run it, and so someone else who was not used to that play did, and they got bumped by the football, and the football fumbled. But I just looked at the Chargers, and I was just like, okay, this is a talented team. This is a team that is, yes, can squander these opportunities, but I also feel like was in such a good spot to be like, at the very least, like if one or two plays went their way and they could have held on, it just impresses me so much that the Jaguars were able to do it, and also I was convinced that Brandon Staley would be fired after this game. That did not happen. Instead, the offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi was the one that got let go, which I think is also fair. I think there's a lot of people who were kind of critical of the way that offense was run this year, despite their record. But I still am like, I'm just flabbergasted by that whole sequence of events.
Yeah.
But like you said, in like the best way. Like I'm so happy for the Jaguars. This is a team that was I wanted to root for going into the season. Why I picked them to win the AFC South. It was such a bummer seeing them kind of fall apart in the middle of the season, and then to see them come surging back and now have this winning streak going for them. It's like, man, like
you know what? You know what the best part about the Jaguars is?
What's that?
They add Calvin Ridley to their offense next year.
That's insane. I forget about that all the time. That is wild. I am fascinated to see it because I do think, like, I don't know, maybe not so much a hot take, but more so of just like it just feels like this is what's going to happen. It feels like the Jaguars are now going to just be kind of like perennial division winners, right?
If they can keep up, if they can win this division multiple years in the row, or at least be as consistent as the Titans have been the past few years,
right?
That would be, for the Jacksonville Jaguars, that would be madness.
I feel like it could, like, it just.
And I agree with you.
Like, like who they have at quarterback, I think is the biggest reason. Like, I think that he was staring at like a horrible start, and he bounced back. And just one last thing on this, like there was a lot of comparisons to Andrew Luck when he was coming out of the draft. There is a very similar playoff game that played out in Andrew Luck's first start, where he had like 3 interceptions very early on against the Chiefs, and then they came back in that game to one of like I don't think I ended up watching it at the time because I think I was very early. In fact, I don't even know if I was super into football at that point. But that Chiefs Colts game, people rave about as being like, oh my god, like what a thriller that was, and the Colts ended up winning that game, and so this just feels like this is now the Jaguars Andrew Luck moment of like, oh shit, like this is the start of something I think really special in Jacksonville, and I also think Doug Peterson deserves all the credit in the world for turning that around compared to think about where they were last year compared to now. Wild.
Yeah.
Then we turn to Sunday, and we have Dolphins at Bills, a game that it really did feel like the Bills, that this was going to be their game, and yet the Dolphins at every turn, at every moment, stayed in it. Skylar Thompson had a really, really solid game, and Josh Allen did make quite a few mistakes as well.
Also turned the ball over a bunch.
Yeah. But ultimately the Bills still came out with the victory. Even though it did come down to the last moments, like the Bills were up 10 points, in the kind of deep into the fourth quarter, and the Dolphins still were able to get a touchdown and still have one last drive to potentially get them in position to try to get a touchdown, or try to get a score, to get them like maybe to a win or maybe to tie the game. I forget what the score was at that point, but it didn't work out for them. But holy fuck, that was not. I don't think anyone was expecting that. I think a lot of it you could give credit to Skylar Thompson. I also give a lot of credit to the Dolphins' defensive line, where I think that they were swarming the Bills all day.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts do you have on Dolphins and Bills?
No, nothing much more.
Yeah.
Glad the Bills won. Be very interesting to see how they do against the Bengals.
I think coming out of this game, I think a lot of people are worried about them. I don't know if I'm completely there. I think part of the reason why this game is to be closer, outside of the fact that Dolphins are showing that they can game plan well in these situations, but I think part of it, I think you could kind of tie some of it to being a divisional rival. Like,
yeah, I agree with that.
I think the fact that you see, and it's not just like, I'm not just talking auras here, I'm talking just like the facts of, you see this team twice before. Like, so you are so familiar with how this team competes. So you then look at your talent, you look at what you have in your roster, is like, okay, how can we this is how the first 2 games went for us. How can we game plan with what we have in a third game, and I think that kind of helped keep the Dolphins as competitive as they were in it. And I think it's part of the reason why Ravens Bengals was so close. Part of the reason why Seahawks 49ers, at least for a little bit, felt so close. Like that, I think that there is something to be said about a third matchup between the two teams. That kind of adds that layer of chaos to the divisional opponents seeing each other. But they made it through. The Bills are safe, and see you later, Dolphins. Hopefully, we'll see what they do next year, because I think Tua is gonna be their future. But you never know with that owner, if he feels like he wants to go reach for the stars. Maybe if Tom Brady becomes available in some capacity, we'll see. The next game, Giants at Vikings. A game that it started with the Vikings marching down the field. They got a touchdown. The Giants, the first play, I believe, was either a holding call or a false start, and it felt like, oh boy, here we go. And then Daniel Jones became, I think, one of the best quarterbacks of this weekend. Where he used his legs to run the ball really well. He threw the ball really well throughout the game. And you could say Vikings defense is just bad, and that's why it happened. But, man, I was not expecting them to play such a good offense in this game. I really thought at the very least defense would play a factor. And they did. They kind of, especially in the second half, shut down Justin Jefferson for long periods of time. And really the big problem for the Giants defense was TJ Hawkinson, who had a big day against the Giants. But Matt, somehow, some way, the Giants won a playoff game in the year 2023.
Whenever the Giants do good, I always text you the same thing, and it's all caps: the New York Football Giants.
I thought you were gonna say that Madagascar video.
Also that all hail the New York Giants. I also do that, because I do that a lot too.
Yes.
But that I saved the Madagascar one for big moments, such as winning a playoff game. The Giants are good.
The Giants are good.
Daniel Jones earned himself another contract.
Oh yeah, I'm a little worried about that, but
yeah,
we'll see.
I think I don't know.
I think he will. I'm just like,
yeah.
I hope it doesn't like hamper the team in anywhere.
Oh yeah, I get that. But like, holy shit, right?
Yeah.
Amazing what good coaching does, and maybe you should have hired a better coach 3 years ago.
Right, like every
Instead
other
of Joe
fucking
Judge.
year. God,
or everyone before him. Like, you have something a little bit.
Yeah.
And it, like, I think that this year more than any, and it's always been the case, like, if you look at the last like Super Bowl winners, like, you don't win a Super Bowl without a top tier head coach.
Yeah.
You need an Andy Reid, you need a Sean McVay, you need a Bruce Arians, like, you need the guy, capital T, capital G, the guy, to win a Super Bowl. Who is like, I'm gonna look at Super Bowl head coaches.
There's been some weird ones. I don't know. I can't in my mind. I'm struggling to think of who would stand out for me on that. All right,
front. I'm gonna go backwards, and I want you to as far as I can, and I want you to tell me, like, for sure they are a bad coach.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Sean McVay.
No.
Bruce Arians.
No.
Andy Reid.
No.
Bill Belichick.
No.
Doug Peterson.
Maybe Bill Belichick. Right.
Doug Peterson.
No.
Big Bill Belichick.
All right. Well, we can skip the repeats, I think.
Okay, Gary Kubiak.
I don't think so.
No. Pete Carroll, John Harbaugh, maybe Mike McCarthy. Like
maybe,
Mike McCarthy is the only one who you could say maybe to.
Yeah, but even then, like back then, he was like one of the best coaches. Like
he was right
back when, like, even like going like when I started really watching football back in like 2013, 2014, he was one of the best head coaches.
Yeah. Over
time, it just ended up the relationship in with Green Bay kind of deteriorated. It was like the guy he just, I think people expected him to win more, and then like it didn't. And then it just play calling, I think, started to not being was not as good as it used to be, and then it just ended up falling apart. But at the time, he was a great head coach. Then you had Sean Payton right after that. Like it's just you're right. Like it is a good coach is everything, and I said it last year. You know, like right around this time, Brian Daboll got hired by the Giants, and I thought like that was the first head coaching hire I feel like for the Giants since, you know, Tom Coughlin left, where I genuinely felt like, okay, no, this is the guy. Like I was so excited to see him there. I obviously anything could have happened, and sure, like maybe things still do fall apart. Like Ben McAdoo fucking brought the Giants to the Super Bowl, or not the Super Bowl, but to the playoffs in 2016, and then completely it was a tire fire the next year. But I don't see that happening with this regime. I don't see that happening with Daboll and Shane, who Joe Shane, by the way, I keep on hearing so many rave things about how he's like, not only is he building the roster, but he's also working with Daboll during the like day of the games to actually like build their game plan, and like he's so in the weeds, and that's like really cool because you feel like GMs just hanging their the boxes in the top of the stadium, and don't pay attention to that stuff. And it's just like like I don't know, like it is so weird being in this position, because even a few weeks ago I was saying like, yeah, the Giants look like they're gonna make the playoffs. I don't know if I'm not excited, right? Because I feel like everything with the Giants has just kind of been, yeah, maybe I don't think they're super talented, but they're coaching well, so that's why they're in the playoff conversation. But then after this game, it's just kind of, it's like, no, maybe we should give them more credit for where they are at roster wise. I mean, the fact that Daniel Jones did look as well as he did, especially in a playoff road environment, you have to give him so much credit on that front. Saquon Barkley, there is the injury concern, but the fact that he is playing the way he is right now is really impressive. And then you have a great defensive line, and you have wide receivers who are outplaying what their pedigree is. Like Isaiah Hodges and them, like all of them are just so they're playing so well, and it's insane.
Here's how you can tell good head coaching.
Yeah.
It's you have like throughout the year you got rid of what's his face, traded to the Chiefs, Kadarius Toney.
Yeah,
like amazing talent. You traded him away. You sat Kenny Galladay, who you're paying a lot of money, and it's working out for you. You're not trying to force feed bad players the ball.
Yeah, and even Galladay, like he's even like it was kind of a rough start to the season in terms of like what his feelings were about the Giants, but he has since kind of really gotten like comfortable with the role that he now has, which is he's still playing, but he's just not playing like to the level that he was when he was with the Lions, but it's still working for the Giants, and it's incredible. And it's wild that I feel like I'm in a world where the Giants have a chance this weekend, and I'm not gonna like, you know, like pick anything yet. Like obviously we'll get to the games when we get to them, but like they showed even in the Week 18 loss that even when they're sitting their starters, they're sitting their best players, that they're still competitive against the Eagles starters. Like the Giants backups were competitive with the Eagles starters. Like that's stupid. Like it's insane how much fun this Giants team is. And I've always I do want to emphasize, like, I know the Giants especially compared to the Jets in their market and compared to a lot of other teams, they are a well-off organization who have 4 Super Bowls. I do not want to seek out sympathy for this team. Like this is one of the big established NFL franchises that like they have the world and they don't really need much more. For me as a Giants fan, I don't even know if I need them to win the Super Bowl. It would be fun if they did for me, but I just want them to give me entertaining football. I want them to give me a chance to root for them in these high stakes situations and make me excited to be a fan. And this is exactly what they're doing now. This is exactly what I want out of this team. And saying that now compared to where we were a year ago before Brian Daboll was hired baffles me, and I am just so excited, even if they get blown out this weekend, for the future of the Giants organization. I cannot wait to see what happens. And also, the Vikings are a fraud, and they were exposed. Such, so.
They were exposed.
But anyways, that's enough about that.
Imagine if you bet on the Vikings because you weren't watching football all season.
Right. It's that one of the wildest, like, this was one of the wildest seasons for, like, a couple of teams. Like, I would put the Raiders in that conversation of, like, what a wild fucking season that was. Mm-hmm. Same with the Vikings. Like, that is entertaining to the max of like, you're gonna go down to the wire every single time and win every single time. And for the first time this season, you go down to the wire and you lost. Like, that's wild. I don't think I would have been as angry as other Giants fans, but the Vikings did get help from the officials a little bit on the Dexter Lawrence sacked Kirk Cousins on that final drive, and ultimately that drew the penalty of roughing the passer. I mean, look, I've said this many times, like, even when it's affecting my team, I think officiating is just flawed at its core, and when the bad officiating happens, you just have to figure out a way to play around it. It sucks, but that's just how it is. But and guess what? The Giants did play around it, because then, very soon after that, Kirk Cousins threw a ball short of the yard to gain, and ultimately lost that game. So that's what you have to do in those situations. It sucks, but you get through it. Ravens at Bengals. That was the Sunday night game, and another wild one. Like, who knew? Well, not who knew, because I think we've seen Tyler Huntley play
super well.
Yeah, like, we've seen him play well before, but to see him play this well was I think a surprise for a lot of people. And the defense definitely gave the Bengals a lot of issues. They definitely struggled to run the ball against this Ravens defense, and it's just they are just tortured by them, and especially now with the offensive line as beat up as it is for the Bengals, very concerning for them moving forward. But that play of the weekend with the Huntley, who shouldn't have really been in the position to do this, because it was not close enough to do this, but he attempted to sneak a ball in. It got batted down by a Bengals defender, and Sam Hubbard was right there to pick up the ball and run the entire way down the field to score a touchdown in a just hilarious series of events that ultimately put the Bengals on top when it was all said and done. And again, credit to the Ravens for playing as close as they did, but time management in this game was brutal for the Ravens. They burned their timeouts when they didn't need to. Excuse me.
No, they
opposite.
didn't use it.
Opposite.
They didn't
yeah,
use their timeouts.
It was the opposite. Yeah, it was the fact that the Ravens did not use their timeouts when they were supposed to, let time wind down the clock, and ultimately it ruined that whole experience for them, because they would have probably had a chance. And that ball was very close to being caught in the end zone at the end of the game, but it still fell apart for the Ravens, and the Bengals move on. Any thoughts on this game?
The hilarious fucking thing about the Sam Hubbard thing is that, like, someone posted, like, a stat that was like, oh, the ball was 0.6 yards away from the end zone, Tyler Huntley's ball. That's still like 2 feet. Like, that's nowhere fucking close, you know? Like,
yeah,
ridiculous. And if that touchdown run doesn't happen, and the Ravens had kicked a field goal instead, the Ravens won.
Yeah.
Ravens defense played very well. I do think that the Ravens do have, like, a future still. They just got to make sure, Lamar is healthy. Again, the same problems that they've had every offseason is Lamar needs help.
Right.
And surprisingly, trading away Marquise Brown did not give him help.
I mean,
weird how that works.
They did. Greg Roman is not returning. And
So new offensive look. I think that they will extend Lamar. That's going to be the biggest off. The only quarterback offseason story that you should care about is Lamar Jackson. No other ones matter.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, yeah, they probably extend them, but they've also, I think both parties in a lot of ways, it's been a very weird, standoff, contract negotiation, whatever you want to call it. Like it's been a weird circumstance around both of them. Um, I RG3 was who's now on ESPN was kind of talking about this. He was the backup for Lamar Jackson for multiple years, and he was kind of implying that, like, I think that generally speaking, the outside world has kind of overblown that this relationship is deteriorating. Yes, maybe it is weird that Lamar Jackson, that he's not attending the game to against Cincinnati, or that he was maybe posting on social media about getting getting the money that he should. But I don't know. I sometimes I kind of want to trust the people who we know talk to them, and I think it's not like one of those things where RG3 was just trying to defend Lamar Jackson. He also was saying, like, the organization also wants this relationship to be mended. Like he's been talking. He made it seem like all sides are talking to each other. All sides want this storyline to go away, and ultimately they want to figure something out contract wise. So after I heard him talk about that, I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, I do kind of believe RG3 in this situation about where things are at, but I don't know. I think it is going to be a whole lot of speculation, a whole lot of storylines, and it's going to go on and be an annoying one until it's all said and done. So we'll see how it all unfolds.
And notice how bluntly I said he's the only one that matters.
Yeah,
I do not give a shit about anybody else.
Yeah. Speaking of a quarterback that could hit the market, the last game was Cowboys and Buccaneers, and really there really is not much to say about this one outside of the Cowboys dominated. They completely came through, and I think a lot of people were worried. They had not won a road game since the 90s.
Back in the 90s.
They are but they just have been privy to collapsing when they shouldn't, but ultimately they showed, hey, no, we're here, we're actually doing the thing, we're beating up on a bad Bucs team, and that's what they did.
Yep.
The only, like, I feel like there's two takeaways here. One is the Tom Brady thing, and he had a bad game, and ultimately now what his future is now up in the air. I'm kind of with you, Matt, where I'm like, I don't. It is what it is. Whatever he decides is good to. It'll be interesting. Like if he does move on from the Bucs, but he still wants to play football. Like it'll be interesting to see where he lands. But I think where he is at and where like Lamar Jackson's at, I think Lamar Jackson at this point is a much better player considering considering one's in his 20s and the other is in his 40s, and now is starting to show his age a bit. So I think it'll be interesting, but it'll probably drag out way too long than it needs to. But the other interesting storyline here was Brett Maher, the kicker for the Cowboys, who, man, I felt so bad for him.
Yep.
Kicked, or did not kick 4 extra points in a row. He was just brutal. And I think he finally got it on his 5th extra point.
Yep.
And that was enough to, for things to be A-okay. Because he's still on the team because he did have an amazing year. But they want to see, Mike McCarthy came out and said that, like, yeah, he's still on the team, but he needs to have a good practice this week. As of now, he's still on the team. I don't think they've signed any other kickers.
They have signed another kicker.
They did.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe things are not as a smooth sailing for Brett Maher going to divisional weekend, but that is going to be something to watch, is the kicking game, because this is going to be a much tougher matchup for them. They want to have someone that is going to be able to hit the field goals and extra points that they need. So that was really the only other interesting thing about Monday night. Outside of that, everything, it was a bad game.
Yep.
But whatever. Hi, everyone. It's Chris, and I'm back once again to tell you all about Anchor. Anchor by Spotify has actually been the tool of choice for Team Chaos Productions since the moment we decided to get into podcasting. And the biggest reason for this is it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your computer or even your phone. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, but also Apple Podcasts and many more. And best of all, Anchor is free. You do not need to worry about any features being locked out to you. You can get it all if you just download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Happy podcasting.
Sick of talking about video games with people who just want to be toxic? Me too. So join us over at the Gaming Coop. We come together each month to talk about what we love about video games. Discussion topics range from our favorite soundtracks to the best relationships between characters. We also have some fun segments in which we play some trivia or build our school of gaming. Find us on Anchor or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Game on!
All right.
We talked a lot about those games.
Hey, yeah. Well, that's what I was prepared for. I was like, we don't have a lot of other stuff going on. But just to quickly go through some other NFL news, the Cardinals and Titans did hire new GMs, so the GM hiring cycle is now officially done. Monty Austinfort, who was with the Titans, is now a Cardinals GM, and Rand Carthon is now the Titans GM, hired from the 49ers organization. We already mentioned that Joe Lombardi was fired. Buccaneers fired Byron Leftwich. Dolphins had fired defensive coordinator Josh Boyer. Their defense was definitely a big issue prior, I feel like, to the wild card game, where I think they played at least a little bit better. The Starfish hired defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz, so that's a long-time defensive coordinator showing up for the Starfish. And then the other note here, I feel like the only one that I really want to say anything on, is Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson is staying with the Lions.
Ben Johnson.
He turned down any. He I think he did maybe interview with one team, but he ultimately rescinded any interest at any other team because he really believes the Lions are building something special.
I agree with him.
Detroit, and I just want to say that must feel good if you're a Detroit fan, where you're like, hey, I'm a coach that could be a head coach, but I'd rather just be an offensive coordinator right now because the team I'm on is on the brink of something special. And it's just like, okay, that's neat. I appreciate that. All right, Matt, let's get to our picks. You, my friend, went 6-0 on picking.
Yeah, buddy.
In the wildcard weekend, we did only disagree on one, so I did go 5-1, which is not bad. But,
yeah, buddy.
That was a very, very good showing on your part. And now we have 4 games to discuss here. We're gonna start with the 4:30 matchup. The Jaguars are in the divisional round again. Last time they were there, they faced the Steelers and they beat the Steelers. This time,
they sure did.
They're taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. And Matt, you mentioned earlier, Trevor Lawrence undefeated on Saturdays, going all the way back to high school. What do you think is gonna happen in this game?
Okay, so it's the meme, right?
Sure.
Like it's not. You can't fully base like NFL analysis on something on a picture with a white background, black text that you download off of Facebook, right? If you do, there's a problem, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
Like you like you can be joking. Like you can be like, oh yeah, I want to pick this way. But if you're like being like if you want to be like serious about it, you don't, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That said,
Mm-hmm.
I am a little bit of the belief right now that the 1 seed is not the seed that you want.
Yep.
In the current playoff format. Could be momentum, could be a lot of things, you know? And the way that the Jaguars came back, the way that everything started to click with them, I think that they speed ran playoff jitters in the first half of the Chargers game. And they're not going to have to deal with it anymore. I wish this wasn't the first one that we had to pick. I'm going to pick the Jaguars to beat the Chiefs.
Hell yeah.
It's going to be so much harder to beat them than the Chargers. Like, the Chargers was a pretty easy pick to make, I think.
Sure.
This is not. Like, the Chiefs are so much better. They're so much better coached. The Chiefs, like, live in the playoffs currently. And Mahomes has a home playoff game, right? Like, he doesn't lose those very often.
Right, but guess what? So you finish your thought first.
Yeah. So, like, but, I mean, the Bengals beat them last year.
But that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah. The Bengals beat them last year at home. So it's totally possible. The Chiefs will probably win this game, and at the risk of losing my perfect streak so far, like, it feels weird picking the Jaguars. However, I don't care as much about, like, having a perfect streak. That's if I do continue a perfect streak, and it's by picking the fucking Jaguars, I am going to be on top of the world.
100%. 100%. Totally. I think this is going to be a hard week for me to... I feel like so much has gone... I think that this past weekend went exactly how I would have wanted to as a football fan, where I got my favorite team in the divisional round, but I felt like I also got a bunch of teams that kind of deserve to be at this stage in the divisional round. But at this point, I might rescind back into my shell of pessimism here, just as a front of, hey, I'm going to pick what I think is going to happen. But if I go 0-4, that means that something great happened in the NFL. And that will be worth it to me. So that said, I am going to pick the Chiefs. I don't think it's going to be an easy game for them. I think that the Chiefs are they always play better. Or at least the defense always plays better when wintertime comes around, when January comes around. They always end up stepping up. But generally speaking, this is still a team that always has somewhat questionable defensive performance. And this is also the first playoffs where the Chiefs don't have Tyreek Hill. They do have great weapons, but that is going to be an interesting sub storyline with the Chiefs of, you know, what will happen if the Jaguars somehow shut down one wide receiver that you have. Will you still be able to really, really succeed with everyone else? I just don't know. I'm not fully convinced. I think Travis Kelce obviously is going to be a huge part of that game plan. But we'll see. I'm looking forward to this game, but I'm picking the Chiefs.
Alrighty. Next up, Saturday night, the Giants versus the Eagles. 3 NFC East teams are left in the playoffs. How far we have come from 2020. We have Giants and Eagles obviously have faced twice already. Eagles have won both games. The Giants do have a chance. The Eagles did not play last week, but Jalen Hurts is no longer like on the injury report. Could still be bothering him, and we've seen some weakness in the Eagles. As you said earlier, the Eagles have the Giants backups still played competitively with the Eagles starters. Do you think that's going to change how you pick this game?
I think, again, I'm so happy that the Giants are where they are. I think it was fun to actually have a playoff victory and to see that unfold. I do think they have a chance in this game, mainly only because of the fact that this Eagles team has been kind of a tough watch since their second matchup against the Cowboys. They have not played nearly as well, and that's not just because Jalen Hurts didn't play. Like their defense hasn't really been as good. They're generally the weapons haven't been playing as well either. And the whole Jalen Hurts injury situation is very weird. It is good to see that he's off the injury report. So maybe that's kind of like a sign that maybe things are better. But if they're not, then I do think the Giants are in a very good spot. I am going to pick the Eagles. I think mostly because I feel like it would be just such a disappointment for how, and this happens, I feel like, to every team in some way, where you have just this strong start, and after being so strong for so long, things just start to fall apart, and things don't feel as like dominating as they did earlier. I feel though that the Eagles have had a very good track record against this Giants team, that I think that they'll just take care of business and they will win this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm gonna go with the Eagles here as well. I really like Jalen Hurts. I don't know what the fucking MVP. I literally have no fucking idea what the MVP vote is gonna end up being, and I think that like Jalen Hurts not being in those last two games is gonna hurt him, and it really shouldn't. He's my MVP.
It might though. Yeah,
I know. And it's like, okay, as long as you give it to Mahomes and not Rodgers again when he doesn't deserve it. Obviously, he won't get it this year.
No.
But...
it's between Mahomes and Hurts, and I think it's going to be Mahomes. Yeah, honestly,
which is that's fine.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I need to fucking bring this up.
Sure.
The fucking Aaron Rodgers say like, oh, I could win MVP again, tells you all that you need to know about him. Like even beyond like his shitty views, like his shitty political views, like he's not a team player. He's all about me. Oh, I could win MVP. Not I could win the Super Bowl for my team. It's I could win MVP again.
Yeah.
That his like unfiltered response is that fuck right off.
Yeah. Not
Go
great.
retire.
Not great. Next up, Bengals at Bills. This is a big one. I think probably the best game of the weekend, but this is a really good weekend, I think, overall for games. And of course, this is the matchup that was canceled earlier in the year. Not earlier, like only a couple of weeks ago, which just feels like it's so long ago now. Yeah. After the Damar Hamlin collapse, he of course is back in Buffalo now, and he who knows, maybe he ends up showing up for this game as a person on the sidelines. He's not gonna play, but I would be curious what the reception is gonna be and how that stadium would feel if he is there, especially with the opponent that was also there and was taking that we're kind of celebrating him as well. Just gonna be a fascinating scene, and it's gonna be I think a very good football game with all the emotions poured into it as well. What do you think is gonna happen in this one?
The winner of this game is who I want to win the Super Bowl.
I think so too.
They're my probably like my number one and number two rooting interest teams right now.
Yeah,
that are left. Maybe Jaguars number 3, but like that's more of me being an agent of chaos.
Sure.
But in terms of like the top tier teams, I want either the Bengals or Bills to win. I'm picking the Bills to win this game. Both these teams played their opponents that they were supposed to beat handily, pretty close, and I do think that the Bills are going to come out on top in this one. It's not a slam dunk though.
Yeah.
Obviously, I still have the Bills as my Super Bowl pick, of course.
Yeah.
So I am contractually obligated to pick the Bills. Regardless, I think I would still pick them anyway.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm picking the Bills, and I think it has everything to do with. I think that the Bills can bounce back from the way that they play the Dolphins. I think that they have the talent to do so. I think that they're in really good shape. I look at the Bengals and I want to root for them. I want them to go far. I think things like the offensive line being as beat up and injured as it is, I think is going to hurt them in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
And I think going up against the Bengals or Bills defense, like they are, is gonna play into that, a bit. So yeah, I'm gonna pick the Bills, but I'm with you. Like I think, let's just say in the hypothetical situation that the Chiefs probably win on Saturday, this is who I want to go win. The whole thing. What?
I made this decision earlier. I'm rooting for the AFC team to win the Super Bowl, unless it's the Chiefs, in which case I'll root for the NFC team.
Sure. Yeah, I think the Jags, for me, if they make it to the AFC Championship game, I'm gonna want them to go because they compared to the Bengals and Bills, the Jags have never been to a Super Bowl before. I just think it would be a neat thing,
yeah.
Especially in the first year of technically second year of Trevor Lawrence, but the first
real year of Trevor Lawrence.
Right, exactly. That's like the fact that he's playing as well as he is. If he can win against the Chiefs, I want them to go the whole distance. I think that's such a great storyline.
Fucking insane.
Yeah.
All right. And then Sunday nights, we have the Dallas Cowboys versus the San Francisco 49ers. Cowboys did play really well. They bounced back from how shit they played in Week 18. Granted, it was against the Buccaneers. But the 49ers have been firing on all cylinders. With Brock Purdy, they have been just the consistently best team in the league, scoring at least 30 points. Basically, since he took over, which is an insane fact. The best defense right now. Do the Cowboys stand a chance, or is this Jerry's last stand?
Jerry's last stand.
Sound cooler than it actually was.
I'm making a change to my Super Bowl predictions, where I had the Bills over the 49ers. I think I'm going 49ers over the Bills.
Oh, man.
I think that this team is a juggernaut. I know. I understand, like, yes, they played close to the Seahawks, but the way they bounced back in that game, the way that they demolished that second half, I just feel like this 49ers team is so much healthier than they were last year around this time. Brock Purdy is a better quarterback than Garoppolo, and a better quarterback than we barely have seen.
You can't say that about Trey Lance. You don't know.
Yeah, we don't know for sure, but I don't think that the 49ers are going to move ahead with Trey Lance at this point. I think that they see what they have in Brock Purdy, and they want to stick with it. It is like, I don't think we can understate how well Brock Purdy has played in these games. He's scoring multiple touchdowns per game. He is getting them out of, like, he's not even playing like Jimmy Garoppolo game manager. He is playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah.
And like, yes, it's the Niners, and again, similar to the Giants in the way that this is like a marquee organization, so you don't necessarily, like, you look at them and you're like, they don't really need a Super Bowl. But this particular team is just so interesting to me because of Brock Purdy and what he has done, and with McCaffrey and Debo and Elijah Moore and the defense playing as well as they are. I just don't know who stops them. So I'm picking the Niners, and it would be my lock if we did the guarantees in this week.
All right. Looks like, other than the Jacksonville-Kansas City game, we are in agreement.
Very nice.
You're a coward for not going against chalk. I'm kidding.
I
kidding.
maybe I am.
I'm kidding, Chris. I'm kidding. That was mean.
But to be fair though, like I said, I am someone who is pessimistic in nature when it comes to picking games. I want to see chaos. I want to see. I want the Jaguars to win. I want the Giants to win. I would even say I want the Cowboys to win. Like I think that it would be more interesting to see the Cowboys go further than they have. But I at the same time though, I just feel like I can't deny this 49ers team right now.
Yeah, this 49ers team is insane.
Yeah. And I just did that whole soliloquy. They'll be beaten by like the multiple scores against by the Cowboys on Sunday. And you know what? That's just the nature of the sport, and that's fine. Yep. So there you go. And we have some small breaking news. But the Vikings have fired their defensive coordinator, which makes sense.
Yes. They had a really bad defense.
It was not great. Ed Donatel is the guy's name. Sorry, that just popped up. I wanted to at least announce that. But yeah, like no, I'm surprised by like no head coaching hires yet. But I think it's because everyone's waiting for what Sean Payton's gonna do. I think that is the domino that has yet to drop.
No one wants to hire not Sean Payton first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like it would be bad PR. Like everyone just waiting to see where Payton lands. I think he will definitely land somewhere this year. Because he does need to be traded. Like the Saints need to cooperate. So like maybe that is also a complicated situation. But I think he lands somewhere. We'll see what happens with that. But other than that, man, I'm looking at this weekend and do think it's going to be a really, really good weekend of football. I don't look at any of these matchups and think anything is a slam dunk. Again, as much as I've just praised the 49ers, like I think anything can happen this weekend. Yeah. And I think that's what that's the kind of joy you want out of a divisional weekend.
Let's go football.
Virtual ball boys. Hey. Let's go football.
Hey, we really think football is cool.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Next week, folks, we will be back to recap the divisional round of the playoffs. We'll then, of course, pick the championship games. And maybe we'll do a segment this time. I don't know. This was a long podcast even without another a major segment that we do in the middle. So We'll see how it plays out. But anyways, folks, thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
Good night and good ball. Virtual Ball Boys has been brought to you by Team Chaos Productions. Find us on Twitter at Virtual Ball Boys and find more of our work at Team Chaos Pods.